Hey guys, welcome back to 1.5 Degrees. This week we're going to be having another film fight, but this time we are going to be talking about video game movies. Thank you for listening.
Hi guys, welcome back to 1.5 Degrees. I'm Stu.
I'm Al.
And I'm Matt.
And this week we're going to be doing another movie fights edition of 1.5 Degrees. The topic is going to be around video game movies. We're going to ask the guys 3 questions. Well, we're going to ask each other 3 questions about video game films. And feel free to post your comments down below as to who you think wins each round. We're going to start off with, first of 3 questions, what is our favourite video game movie? And Matt, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, I'll start it off. So my favourite video game movie, and it is also a guilty pleasure, I'm afraid, that I'm going to have to say Doom, the 2005 movie with The Rock and Curl Urban.
Okay.
They go on an epic adventure to Mars to save some sciencey people from bioengineered monsters, create from prisoners that, you know, they've done evil stuff, so they get to turn into monsters. So yeah, they're part of the Rapid Response Tactical Squad. That's an epic name in itself. And, you know, you two can't beat that. It's just an epic name. They're tasked with killing these monsters, saving people, and recovering this vital data that they need. And, you know, the goal is to escape hell on Mars, which is basically the video game, sort of. It's a different kind of movie for sure, where it's all action. Not much story to it, but it holds a special place in my heart because, you know, it's
like the only movie where Carl Urban can literally fight The Rock and win.
Yeah,
like, it's the only one we'll never see this again. Yeah.
The Rock is tiny in that movie compared to how he is nowadays. He looks like such a baby.
Yeah. He's a worse actor.
He's lost the muscles take away the acting ability.
Yeah. To be honest, though, I think following on from the Scorpion King movies, this is probably his better film in that early 2000s period. That was probably his bet. But I think he does better in Doom. I think the real problem lies with the female actress in that movie. Not much emotion when there's a monster literally sticking out the wall and she just goes, oh god.
Yeah. Also, doesn't she like destroy Facebook with the we only use 10% of our brain myth?
Yeah, basically.
Well?
She was the inspiration for the Lucy film. I bet
was she?
I bet you.
That's
So that's my favorite video game movie.
So Doom, we lead off with Doom. What about you then, El? You go for yours.
Okay, so it's 2001. There's literally one good film that year. It's not Lord of the Rings. It is Lara Croft, Tomb Raider.
Oh god.
Angelina Jolie, in a time when video game adaptations were just not a thing, brings to life this character that we all know from the 90s. If we had a PlayStation 1 in the 90s, she adapts it so faithfully and brilliantly. The sound effects from the game that they use in the movie, like the noises that she makes.
I think they're a little bit different from that.
No, but they attempt to do that. Angelina Jolie is stunning in the role. I mean, it's an adventure movie, it's an action movie. There's intrigue, there's conversation, there's hints of subtle mystery all around it. It brings to life these really like sort of Tomb Raider vibes, and I think it does a really, really good job, especially with Angelina Jolie and especially with her father who's in it as well.
Jon Voight,
yeah, my man. It's overall a very solid It's a very solid original movie because it doesn't borrow the plots from the games, but it does borrow the vibe. It borrows the bad guys. It borrows the theme. Yeah, it's overall all rounder my favorite video game adaptation.
Fantastic. That's a good choice, both of you. Well, my choice is 2004 with the sequel to the start of the horror franchise. It's Resident Evil Apocalypse.
Oh.
Okay.
Now, Resident Evil Apocalypse is based on the third Resident Evil game from 1999, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. It is its own original story, and it takes a massive, it pays massive homage to that game in particular. It continues the story of Alice after her original adventure in the mansion from the first movie, which isn't really as honourable to the first video game lore. This one, she meets a lot of characters from the original video games, and it carries on her story trying to find out the secret of the Umbrella Corporation. And along the way, she discovers, because of her being biogenetically enhanced in Raccoon City amongst the infected zombies, she comes across all the different bosses from the video games, the Lickers, the Nemesis, all the kind of things that you see and are favourable from the video games. And it's just overall lots of action. It's over the top. It's horror. It's thriller. It's got comic relief with LJ, who is just the best comic relief in any.
Mike Epps, yep.
Yep. And yeah, it's just one of my favourites. I grew up on that whole era, and it's my favourite video game series, so I'm a little bit biased.
2 words: psychic powers out of nowhere, though.
That's the second. That's not in the second one, is it?
Well,
At the end of
she
the
does
movie.
She does at the end.
Oh,
She does at the end when she looks at the security camera.
See, I was
Alice is mutating.
I'm totally fine with that movie until the end with the psychic powers. I don't like the psychic
Which
powers.
is the end
they
of all
give
the
her.
Resident Evil films. That's
Yes.
what she does.
I just don't get it.
But I will argue my point when it comes to the movie fights. But if you want to kick it off then, Matt, why do you think that Doom is better than Lara Croft Tomb Raider and Resident Evil Apocalypse?
I mean, have you it's the like you said, it's the chance to see The Rock fight Carl.
Wait. Because we're talking about spectacles here.
Like-
Because can you tell me the plot of Doom? Not the film, the game.
The game.
Because I can
I mean,
promise you,
there is no
Doom
plot.
the film and Doom the game have nothing in common apart from they're both set on Mars. There's nothing
It's just
to
Mars,
adapt.
and they are Marines
So
on Mars.
We can
but-
argue that Doom might be a fun movie or not a fun movie, but we can't argue that it's a faithful adaptation of the video game.
That is
it's
true.
a complete original film.
Yeah. Right.
I feel like it's a guilty pleasure for anyone that
Yeah,
watches
don't
it.
get
It's
me
a
wrong,
guilty
It'll
pleasure.
only ever go down as that.
Don't get me wrong.
But it's a fun
weird,
film.
It's a fun movie, and I'll give it that. And it's a fun zombie movie. But I mean, like for a video game adaptation specifically, I mean, The Rock was not in those original games. Nothing. Like you just played a
Oh,
blonde
no.
head dude, right? Carl Urban's not even blonde.
No,
No.
well,
Was he blonde?
Doom Guy is pretty much faceless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
just wears the mask.
faceless. Yeah. But
He
no,
wears
wait.
the mask,
Isn't
that's
isn't
the
it
whole
where
thing.
when you get hurt in Doom, you can see his like face like.
Yeah, there's an
Oh, yeah,
animation
yeah,
when he gets
exactly.
killed and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can see his face there. But I think what's difficult is that there isn't really any backstory to the original Doom
Exactly.
series.
And
No.
So translating that into a filmic format is very, very difficult with a
Yeah.
with a movie like that.
They obviously
I think-
tried to make it their own.
Yeah, it was tried to be an original, and they translated it as best they could.
Yeah.
It just didn't land on its feet because it's impossible to do. There are some games that are very hard to translate, but there are some that are impossible, and
Oh,
that
yeah,
is what you
totally.
get with Doom.
But you know, they have that little first person sequence in like nearly in the end in the final
That
act
was-
where it's just Carl Urban acting like the Doom guy.
You know that took like 6
And,
months to do, right?
Oh.
It cost them like 70% of their budget on that
Oh.
first person sequence part.
And the boss is a zombie in a wheelchair as well.
Oh, Pinky.
Yeah.
Pinky in the
I
wheelchair.
don't know if I.
Pinky Demon,
Yeah. I mean.
No,
which looked
though.
nothing like that in the video
The
game.
final boss is the Rock, slowly turning into what's the monster called in the game? The Knight.
The Hell
Yeah.
Knight.
Yeah, I think he is turning into.
He's supposed to resemble that.
and
I think that's hard to do when video games follow that format of a final boss and bosses along the way, subordinates. And I suppose that film does have it with the final fight scene.
Do you know who
Yeah.
the boss is in Tomb Raider? Humanity. It's humanity. And do you know who fights the worst of humanity? Angelina Jolie in Tomb Raider.
Yeah,
Because she
but-
plays a character that not only seeks good, but also seeks the truth. To find something, to find an artifact, and take it, maybe not just to a museum, but to give it back to the people. And I think in these perilous times,
basically Indiana Jones.
but
She's a female.
but she does it with so much more style. I mean, have you ever seen Indiana Jones be on some sort of wiring mechanism that's never explained, jumping around her house with those wires attached to her, just doing backflips and kickflips in like pretty much yoga pants?
But does she have
It's-
a great?
That scene is awesome.
That's an amazing scene.
But does
And
she
she's
have-
fighting like there's no reason for those guys to be there whatsoever. There's like, there's a SWAT team attacking.
But
Let's
she
just-
instantly stops exercising just to kill them all.
And it's like the guys on the radio was like, "Have you got a gun?" And she picks up like a screwdriver shooting machine, which I've never seen in real life. And she's like, "After a fashion, yes." And it's like, "Oh, this is cool. This is a cool movie." And it's
Wow.
like dog sledding in the movie. There's like jungle exploration. There's Daniel Craig.
As an American,
Yeah, we don't.
weird.
It's fine.
It's
It's
weird
fine.
though, right?
It's more likely that he's an American in that movie than a sexy James Bond in his late 50s. Now.
The comparison
Yeah.
is real.
So that's why. And when it comes to Resident Evil 2, I mean that was the best one of the series, and I think by far.
Yeah.
Psychic
There's still a
powers.
lot of weird stuff in that movie. There's still a lot of putting it all on Alice, putting it all on these side characters. I mean, who's the guy with the gun in that one? He plays like the SWAT leader. I forget his name.
Yeah, Carlos.
Yeah, he's it's all great, and there's a lot about the movie that works, but I don't know. It's not as fun. It's just not a fun movie to watch because everyone's so dreadful all the time, and like everyone's so like, oh my god, it's coming to an end. The world's coming to an end.
Well, this is I do have a problem, despite the fact that it's my favorite video game film.
Mhm.
I think that the Alice storyline is too contrived. It's too over accentuated. It's not with that series where you should have a brand new character written for it, because you don't have that for Tomb Raider.
Mhm.
For Doom, it's different because the characters have names. They all have characters. There's all the stereotypes. There's the
the
comic
Rock-
relief and the ladies' man and all
Where
that.
the Rock is literally called Sarge.
Sarge. Yeah. He does have a full name in that movie. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't.
It's Sergeant Asher Mahonic. That's his actual name in
Is
the
that
movie.
ever said
Really?
out loud
No.
in the entire movie?
No.
No.
But
Like
I like Doom.
They call Carl Urban Reaper, and
his name is John Grimm.
His name is
John Grimm Reaper. Yeah.
Because he's grim, right? He's the Grim Reaper.
But I
like
want
it.
to add to Resident Evil, the Resident Evil movie, is that they, like you say, they invented a whole character for it. Why couldn't they have just used Jill Valentine?
Well,
from
this
the video
this
game?
is the this is the argument that I have against that movie. The Jill Valentine representation is super iconic. She's an iconic character within that series, much like Claire and Chris Redfield are, which were put into the future movies. But Jill is the fan favorite because she was like the one that stood out, and she was on all the game covers of the originals and stuff. And she was neglected to a side character, but Sienna Glory's performance as her is absolutely fantastic.
It is, yeah.
And it's not just the outfit and the attitude and stuff, but it's the dialogue and the way that she carries herself amongst the rest of those characters. You're always waiting for her because you don't care about Alice in that movie.
Oh, no, it's not.
She doesn't do anything in that film. So yes, it's my favourite, but I'm not a fan of the Alice storyline at all.
In any of the movies.
And really in any of the movies.
She's a mess.
It was introduced. It was introduced within the first movie, which is based on the first game, within the mansion and stuff. So there are those tropes that they pull in, but then the second movie pays way more homage. The Nemesis monster, which of course is the enemy in the third game, which it's based off. Fantastic costume, fantastic scenes with that, like when it shoots the rocket launcher at the shop and then it starts mowing all the guys down.
Yeah.
Love
Can
that
I
scene.
say though the best that the reason why this film sticks out so much more than the other ones in that 7-part series, is it?
Yeah.
Is because it tones down the Hollywoodness and just goes for more of the game.
And I think it ups the realism factor as well, because before it went into that whole psychic thing where she's got all the clones and she can like move things with her mind and all that. This one was still on the ground, a bunch of foot soldiers just walking through Raccoon City, taking out zombies. That's what you think of when you think of a zombie game, a zombie film, and Resident Evil. It's people in groups just killing.
Yep.
Whereas when you translate that into something much bigger, and it's like, well, we can do anything now. It's like when you include like a time travel narrative into a movie. Oh, we can just do anything now.
Yeah.
Like Avengers did that, and that's why that should just stop there.
Jump the
don't,
shark.
Don't take it further, because then it just becomes something different, and it's more of a supernatural psychological thriller than a survival horror film.
Okay. Have you got anything against Doom or Tomb Raider that you want to add?
Do you know what? Like, your guys' picks are really good. I really like those two movies. I will argue that there isn't a plot to Doom.
No, there is not a plot to
As
do, but
we've-
it's fun.
We've admitted. It is fun.
That's
okay?
all you have to care about with
But
Doom.
the problem is we're talking about adaptation when it comes to video game movies. Doom is able to bring in about 10% adaptation from the video games. If that. About the closest adaptive commodity from that game is the BFG gun, right?
Yeah.
They include
Well,
that. They include that, and it's badass, and it's only in 2 scenes. Why would you not put that in every scene?
And it's teased. right?
True.
You just
Yeah.
see the melt marks in most of it,
Yeah.
and the other parts
Yeah.
are just, oh, I'm picking this up. This is a gun.
This is a gun.
This
Hey,
is a gun.
big
I will,
fucking
I will,
gun,
I will
that's what he
openly
says.
admit it's not a very good video game movie. But, but
I
that
know what
being
you're
said,
saying.
I will say that if it wasn't for that movie, I bet you the latest Doom series of games, they wouldn't have a decent plot.
Do you know what? You are so right, because Doom 2016 wouldn't have come out unless that movie had been made, is my belief. Because that game revamped everything for that entire series. That series was it's very dull, it's very quiet, but then, it had gone quiet by 2005. The movie came out, nothing then happened. Then Bethesda developed the 2016 version, and it's fucking insane. It's
brilliant.
absolutely amazing. The sequel coming out looks amazing. So that series is still very strong as a franchise. It's just in the filmic world, I don't know if it can be translated.
I don't think it would ever be touched again for a movie.
Resident Evil can be translated. Tomb Raider can be translated as well. I think that the Angelina Jolie one absolutely did that better than the Alicia Vikander one, from 2018.
Well, but
Even the sequel was quite good.
Well, they're both really fun. And what I want to say about the sequel series, like, so after that sort of genre of like Angelina Jolie ended, they came up with the new Alicia Vikander sort of games and movie, which were just not comparable. You just can't go back and make this mix of fun, adventure, mystery, intrigue, as well. And so I think Angelina Jolie as Lara Croft Tomb Raider fits into this very special original place, and I think the adaptation brought everything it wanted from the video games and tried its hand at an original plot, and it kind of worked. It's a really, really fun movie, and it's a very deep movie when you get into the relationship between Jon Voight and Angelina Jolie, because they're real life father-daughter.
Yeah.
The side characters are fun, the bad guys are fun, Daniel Craig's fun, but it doesn't sacrifice fun for, it doesn't sacrifice plot for fun. It's still a good plot. It's still overall a good movie. I could put this movie on right now and watch it and just be quite happy to watch it.
So you're saying it's got like a nice even balance of that silliness and funness, but as well as having like a really decent story.
Yeah, but I'll see because you're right about the second Resident Evil movie. It is the best one by far, but I would also say it's probably aged quite badly. It's very over stylized. It takes its stylization too far, and it takes a lot from like sort of other action films like The Matrix and stuff like that it doesn't deliver on. There's a scene where she's running down a wall, and she really does that, and I think that's probably the best action moment in the movie. But there's probably others when she's fighting the Nemesis, or the action's a bit choppy or a bit cut, and it's a very much 2005 is it? He said
2004. Yeah.
2004 movie.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's part of that time where like the editing's really like cut and hard, and it's
Taken 3 on steroids.
It's a bit janky kind of thing. So,
which is fine for its time period. I'm not ripping it over.
It's fine for its time, but those films I do think looked better. The aesthetic of the movies did kind of improve as they went on. The story absolutely didn't, but the aesthetic was a pleasurable. It's a pleasure-seeking thing to watch. So I think that's all you can really take from that franchise when it is translated into a cinematic format.
Okay.
Television format, I think, would work better. I know that Netflix are doing their own Resident Evil series.
Yeah, there's so much content,
which is going to be original, but they are going to take from other characters within that universe, which I've read. So that's what I want to see, because like you say, there are a million different stories you can tell from that universe. Even with something like Lara Croft, you can still translate that again. Why can't there be another Tomb Raider movie in the style of the Angelina Jolie one? And the reason is because of the video games, because of the 2013 video game
the reboot series.
Because they changed it. That's why it was then like, well, now we have to change the movies because it has to fall in line and appease the audiences that enjoyed that series.
It's for a new generation, obviously, totally.
And I won't speak for audiences. When people loved the reboot, gritty Lara Croft, but I definitely don't think audiences wanted to see that on screen. The gritty reboot of Lara Croft, no, it's not going to happen.
Oh no,
because
you in the film universe, obviously you're used to seeing Angelina Jolie doing crazy stuff on wires and stuff, but we went to see the remake film, didn't we? And she just gets pounded on.
It's a
endlessly.
bit weird because she looks like 12.
Yeah.
and it's basically like child abuse. The movie.
Thing is, I do enjoy the reboot games, and I did quite enjoy the film. It's adapted pretty well for the reboot.
Yeah, that's right.
But same as you say, I think people are expecting to see Lara Croft the action hero rather than troubled girl with dead dad.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing.
Do we want to have one last argument for each one?
Yeah. Well, all I'm going to say is Resident Evil 2 fits within that universe the best in that series. It's got all the homages from the video game, from the second video game as well, I've just remembered, as well as the third one. The action is very fast-paced, it's very funny, it has got a great storyline in of itself, and the way that it does that is because of that translation worked in terms of the video game to filmic format. Absolutely didn't with the others, but I'm not going to shit on the others too much to make mine look better, because as well as Doom and Lara Croft, I enjoy those movies. My final thought on Doom is there's no backstory, but it's enjoyable.
Yep.
And my thought on Tomb Raider is that there is a nice balance of the silly action and the plot. I do think it's a little bit dated now, but that's because the video game series has moved on. Even though I prefer the original video game series, I do think it doesn't sit within the universe now, and it's slowly becoming a cult classic. The video games are definitely the original three, but I think those movies are as well, which is a bit of a shame.
Well, my last say on Doom is going to be that if you're looking for a chill Saturday night with a takeaway, and you just don't want to switch your brain off and just want to watch The Rock go at it with a load of monsters, it's the movie. It's all spectacle, not much narrative, no narrative really, but it's a really fun watch.
The dialogue is amazing.
The dialogue is great. I was going to suggest that we should all do a quote from our movies, and my quote is going to have to be "Semper Fi, motherfucker." But
I mean, you said eat some, like sit down, have some food, but the only thing you could actually like eat or drink that's equivalent to that movie is a Monster Energy and a pot noodle.
Exactly.
There's no plot to digest.
Final thoughts on Lara Croft Tomb Raider. Okay, so Angelina Jolie at her absolute best, and that's saying something because she's done some really good movies. The supporting cast is brilliant. The tone of the film is brilliant. You've got dog sledding, mountain climbing, jumping through the air with two guns, saying "ah." You've got
is that your quote?
You've got Angelina Jolie fighting in her massive billionaire garage with a screwdriver gun, fighting SWAT people, and she's just decimating. It's good action. It's not too choppy the way it's edited either. You've got a very heartwarming tale about a woman trying to connect with her father. You've got mysterious, almost magical elements of like statues coming to life. It's just a fun movie. You can take your family to see it. You can watch it with your girlfriend. You can watch it on a Friday night by yourself. It's a great movie.
You can totally do that with Doom.
And Resident Evil.
What I'll say with Doom is you get caught up in so much heavy masculine energy and gunfire, and like you can just taste the blood of everything. And what I'd sadly,
that sounds like a point to mine.
What I'd sadly say with Resident Evil, because if the series would have been better, I would have said that's the better movie. Sadly, with the second Resident Evil movie, it is just a diamond in the rough. Like it's one good one out of 7 other movies. Like maybe you can argue for the first one, but sadly they took too many liberties. They took too harsh action. The movie itself is good. I won't fight that. But Mila Jovovich overdoes it, and she's a hot mess in every fucking scene that she's in. Good movie. My favorite, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider.
But what's your final quote? What's your quote from the movie that you're gonna do? Is that Angelina Jolie or Kiwi Hall's video
because
game
they
one?
tried to emulate it in the movie. They tried to emulate the sounds that she makes in the movie. Yeah.
What about you, Stu? What's your quote from your film?
GTA, motherfucker. That's it for round 1. Post your comments down below as to who you think won that round. Do you think the best video game movie is Doom, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, or Resident Evil Apocalypse? Moving on to round 2.
Okay, for this round, we're going to pitch an adaptation of a video game to make into a movie. We're going to choose which actor or actresses can go in that movie, and we're going to see how faithful we can get it and how strong we can make our pitch, and we're going to argue about it. Leave your comments below. Starting off, we're going to have Stu.
Okay, so back in 2006, when the Xbox 360 came out, it might have been the year before, one of the first games I played was Gears of War. Now, Gears of War is just this blood and testosterone fueled ride.
We talked about Doom, and now we've got...
we're jumping straight back into that. Yeah, the masculinity is off
you
the scale.
can't argue Doom wasn't good then. You know, Doom inspires Gears of War.
But Gears of War has story. Now,
enough of that.
Yeah,
so go on.
let's stop shitting on Doom.
What's your pitch?
So Gears of War, if you're not familiar with the games, it is about the COG soldiers and civilians fighting against the Locust Horde, which have invaded the planet. They've declared war on humanity. They're known as the Delta Squad, led by Marcus Phoenix and his partner Dominic Santiago. And then there's the Cole Train, baby, and Damon Baird, who is the comic relief character. The mission is to deliver the light mass bomb to the through the Locust Hordes to essentially blow up their planet. Now, translating this into a movie, as I mentioned before, this is nothing but muscles, masculinity, testosterone. This is very over the top. So who better to cast as Marcus Phoenix than Dave Bautista?
Oh,
so
that's good.
Now, this, I will say that if you look this up online, Dave Bautista has been asked about this movie before, and he has expressed interest in playing that role. I don't think it could happen now, but maybe 10 years ago this could have happened. The problem you've got is that Dave Bautista can't fucking act. Right?
You're making my arguments for me.
Well, my supporting cast, okay, now I've already mentioned Oded Fair, who was the actor that played Carlos in the Resident Evil series and in The Mummy. I could see him as Marcus Phoenix's side character, Dominic Santiago. He's sort of the Hispanic. He is the side character, but he's still quite a sort of masculine sub-lead character as well. I have mentioned the Cole Train, Augustus Cole, who is the big American football player who's
Cole Train,
very,
baby.
very eccentric. Whoa! So I want to see Terry Crews in that role. And then potentially as the comic relief side character Damon Baird, I would like Ryan Reynolds. Now this is a muddle though, because you've got
I knew it was coming.
because Ryan Reynolds, right?
Ryan Reynolds.
His career has blown up to the A-lister status. So whether he could be negated to a fourth side character is quite an argument. Okay, I'm mainly selling this on Dave Bautista as Marcus.
Where Dave Bautista is top build above Ryan Reynolds.
exactly, and even Terry Crews.
Do you remember Gears of War, the Dave Bautista movie?
The Dave Bautista
I
movie.
thought that was Ryan Reynolds.
Wait a minute, Ryan Reynolds is a side character. Hang on.
Okay.
However, the design of this, I want to see this in the same vein as I want to see The Road meets the Warcraft movie. I want to see a dirty landscape mixed with big scale CGI set pieces. I want to see someone like Len Wiseman, who directed Underworld and Die Hard, do this, or someone like Michael Bay, and we want to go full blown action. Okay,
Full blown Michael Bay.
we want to go full blown Michael Bay. Now,
You've pitched me a Dave Bautista, Ryan Reynolds movie that directed by Michael Bay. Is this movie made in 2006?
this is what I'm saying. 10 years ago, this would have been great.
10 years ago, it would have been great.
It would have been great.
I could
Now
see this
it's
film.
very hard to sell. And someone like Dave Bautista, he, don't get me wrong, right? He's building up an acting repertoire, but he's very old. Okay, this guy has started his career when he was 45, essentially, in acting.
In Guardians of the Galaxy, where he plays a kind of a dumb alien.
Yeah, exactly. But it's entertaining. I want to see the dialogue from Ryan Reynolds as Damon delivering those comic relief lines. I want to see Terry Crews in the big American football outfit, killing guys like he does in that scene in The Expendables when he just mows a load of guys down.
good.
Yeah.
I want to see that role. I want to see Oded Fair as that traumatic side character with his wife dying. But we want to combine the plots of Gears of War 2 and Gears of War 3 into the one. So I want to see the bit from Gears of War 2 when they're in the giant worm.
Ooh,
I
want to
see. I
Oh
want
my
to see
goodness.
Gears of War 3, where they're mourning for Dom's death.
It's a giant
halfway
worm.
through. Yeah. Oh my god.
It's a giant shark and it's jumping.
I can visualize it. This is going to happen. And then the mission is to get to to kill the Locust Queen at the end, and that could be played by Helen Mirren. I need her in that horror science fiction role, man.
So Helen, we've got a movie for you.
It's called Gears of fucking War. Are you ready? Michael Bay is helming this shit.
Helen Mirren.
This is gonna sell
Oh
those
my
tickets to all those fans that don't exist anymore because Gears of War is dead
It
now,
sounds like you wrote this movie on fire.
and a lot of cocaine.
She
Oh
would
my
be
God.
flattered that she's going to be
Helen
the
Mirren.
Locust Queen.
Listen. Fast and Furious. She delivers a fantastic, subtle performance. She doesn't drive any cars in those films, but because she's in that franchise, the next stop, Gears of War. Right? You're moving up
You
in
mean
the
it's
world.
falling down so much?
She's 70-something years old.
A
She can
career-
play the main villain
Oh my
in the big boss
God.
battle at the end. Honestly, I can see it.
I'm
I
sure.
want to see explosions. I
I'm
want to
sure
see
she'd be
giant
honoured.
metal trucks. And you remember the character Dizzy from number
Yeah.
2? I want to
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
I want to see Kurt Russell
Oh
as
my
Dizzy.
God.
Right? I need this movie to happen.
Oh
right?
my
I know
God.
we said we've gone all out on the cast. Right? This is just. I got carried away.
I can't believe this.
But it's gonna happen. Right? Just think. Warcraft meets The Road.
I
Okay.
think-
Oh,
Dirty grey landscapes with giant monsters and giant guns, giant dudes.
Oh my god.
Everything's just overscaled,
And
right?
even-
Dial
even-
it up to 11. The
even in
guitar is playing on loud.
Even in a wide shot, 90% of the screen will be muscles. Even on a wide angle landscape
That's
shot,
Gears of War.
there's muscles in 90%.
It's literally like
Oh.
steroid filled.
You could
I can't
almost
wait. It's gonna
imagine if
happen.
this film was the 80s, it would be just full of Arnie, Carl Weathers, and all these
Oh yeah,
other big
yeah. This is
dudes.
like Predator reimagined.
Like, even
trust
your
me.
pitch makes me want to go and see a ballet.
Just to tone it down a bit.
Just
to tone down the
a
will.
lack of
and
masculinity.
you argued against Doom.
Yeah, I've got to say, this is
Yeah.
the most doomy doom pitch I've ever seen.
The thing
We're going
is,
over the scale.
The thing is,
Okay.
I think you've beaten my pitch.
Go on.
Okay,
let's hear your
that's
pitch.
me done. You go, Matt.
I don't know if I can follow this one.
Go
No,
on.
you know. So this video game, as I say, is basically if Firefly was a video game. A spaceship full of well-written, interesting characters you never tire of chatting to in this video game. It's such a great world-invested universe. A movie where the goal is to save the galaxy from an impending invasion from a race of sentient alien machines. This movie would be Mass Effect. And I've got as my leading character as Commander Shepard. My leading actor is going to be Jake Gyllenhaal.
I thought you were going to say Patrick Stewart then.
Patrick Stewart. You know, my first thought was to use the cast of The Next Generation.
Yeah, just have a feedback loop of just Star Trek,
yeah.
Star Trek. Okay, go on.
Incredible.
So I've got Jake Gyllenhaal as Commander Shepard. I've got John Goodman voicing Erdnott Rex.
Okay, all right.
yeah,
I'm
I'm good for this.
No, this is good now. Okay.
And I used her in the last fight, but Martha Higrada for the voice of Tally.
Okay, yeah,
I can
so-
imagine that with the synthesized voice.
Okay, who
almost.
plays Liara?
I haven't got a Liara,
Okay.
but for Garrus though, I did struggle with this, but I'm kind of liking Nathan Fillion for his chill voice.
Oh my god!
You know,
Thank you
so-
both so much for the win on this one. I'll just take
But
it now.
No, this movie's going to be good. It's just going to be the plot of the first game. I just want to see that very like Firefly-esque on screen. I think it'd be
One
quite
person
cool.
might say Star Trek-esque.
Yeah, if you've watched Picard, obviously.
Well, if you watched any Star Trek, it's based on Star
No.
Trek.
Nah, it's it's like Firefly mixed with Star Trek. I'll go. You know, it's a cool game, and I really want to see this movie. I don't know why it hasn't come out. Arguably, I think it could make a better TV show. I mean, arguably the TV show's already out. But yeah, Mass Effect, a very I'd argue a more serious film than Gears of War the movie.
Yeah, I'd probably argue that too.
It's definitely more of a character piece that I'm going for with this one. But yeah, Mass Effect the movie.
Excellent.
Should be made.
You go, El.
Okay. Oof, I thought I was going to be nervous for this one, but this. Let's just
Easy
take a
win,
step
eh?
back from the masculinity surge for a minute, and Ryan Reynolds and Nathan Fillion everywhere. Let's just
Fillion is a masculine.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Okay, so the story is set in the year 2508 and begins when the USG Ishimura, a mining starship designed to extract ore in large masses of billions of tons, sends out a distress signal mysteriously. Engineer Isaac Clarke and Commander Zach Hammond are sent to investigate. Isaac's girlfriend Nicole Brennan is known to be aboard the Ishimura. This is a Dead Space film adaptation.
Oh,
Wow.
Yes, you've won. Yes,
So-
you've won.
Not yet.
Wait for it.
Oh no.
Isaac Clarke's job is to fix the ship and locate his girlfriend. Commander Zach Hammond's job is mysterious and unknown. He goes with Isaac, but his motives are not what it appears to be. Nicole Brennan could be aboard the ship alive. We don't know. Isaac Clarke is played by John Krasinski.
Oh wow.
Nicole Brennan is played by Emily Blunt.
Oh.
Commander Zach Hammond is played by Giancarlo Esposito.
Wow.
This is Dead Space.
I think yours is
Motherfucker.
yours. I think yours is too serious, so we're gonna scrub
It's a
yours
horror
out.
game. It's a horror game taken from different horror movie depths of lore. So we've got stuff like Lovecraftian horror. We've got mysterious alien beings we don't know about. Even from Event Horizon. It's all this mysterious horror, and it's so palpable and so tense, and you're attracted. We already know these characters in real life. John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are married, I think.
Yeah.
There's a tense relationship there. Is it possible that Nicole Brennan is alive? Is it possible that Isaac Clarke could make it? Is it possible that Commander Zach Hammond isn't what he's supposed to be? We don't know.
Okay.
Hmm.
Right. Let's fight it out then. Matt, go first.
How do I follow on with that?
What would you want to see the most?
Oh God.
Hopefully your own.
Obviously, he wants to see
well, I
Nathan
wanna-
Fillion in his goddamn trench coat again.
Yeah. Wait, no, he's gonna be. He's gonna be he's gonna be an alien.
Which one?
It's gonna be Gareth. I said it's gonna be Gareth.
What? Okay.
I struggle with the voice.
It's-
But he's got a cool voice. Gareth has got a very, very chill, relaxing voice in the game. When you spend
true.
like an hours talking to him non-stop.
We all know Gareth is from the south of America, the American states. So,
Yeah.
He's got that little South Texas twang. To it.
Yeah. I think my choices are pretty good, especially John Goodman for Rex. You can't beat that.
I'll give you that one.
That voice
That's
is
solid.
so cool.
That's a solid choice. That
Um,
one.
Yeah, I mean the rest of the choices are a bit out there. Jake Gyllenhaal's Commander
Well,
Shepard. but,
okay, so I've got a problem with
but-
that, right? So you're picking to adapt Mass Effect,
Mhm.
right? But you're not going with Fem Shep. You're going with a male Shepard character. We
Yes.
all know female Shepard, voiced by Jennifer Hale,
Yeah.
in the series, is so far better. She won awards for that. I think she won awards for playing Fem Shep.
Yeah, but
So
I
it's
prefer
so-
not Mia. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I prefer male Shep. Male Shepard is cool, but yeah, this plot would this film would follow the plot of the first video game, where there's the hunting down the rogue Spectre, what's his name? Saren, the rogue Spectre Saren, who's is trying to help the sentient machines invade the Milky Way galaxy. It's a very been there done that plot, I know, sort of, but I think we need to see this adaptation. I think it would be far better than Gears of War.
Gears of
And
War
I
movie
think-
sponsored by Doritos.
Yeah, man, this Gears of War film. This
Hey,
is gonna be your Super Bowl movie. This is gonna be off the scale. Like, turn up the amps,
Oh my god.
turn up the brightness on your monitors. Go to the IMAX. You are gonna see.
It's just gonna be non-stop chainsaws and gore.
You are going to see guys with chainsaw guns chopping up monsters left, right, and centre. There's going to be the corpse of a giant spider in it. Big CGI fest. It's going to be really pleasing on the eyes, and you don't need to pay any attention to the story whatsoever.
I think Gary Busey would have walked out of your pitch.
Gary Busey would have took that role as the queen in that role.
I think he would have said, "That's too masculine for me, man. That's too crazy." Like I think
Nothing's too masculine for Gary Busey. I can see the train scene at the very end going on even longer than the Fast and Furious runway scene.
That's the first movie.
It's gonna be all out action. The problem that I have, I can't say too much about Mass Effect, right? I've only played it a small amount. The problem I have is with a Dead Space film. There are two movies.
Okay.
There are two movies that have come out that remind me of Dead Space. That's Event Horizon, as we've mentioned, and Aliens.
Ooh.
Okay.
Now, I know that Dead Space is very synonymous with the gore and the deaths, and I can see the impact that Krasinski and Blunt would deliver to those roles as well. I think they're fantastic.
Well, he's no Ryan Reynolds.
Of course not. He can't be Ryan Reynolds. Deadpool.
It's just Ryan.
It's just Ryan Reynolds. But the issue I've got is again just adapting the story into that format. I think it's
placed like a story though, because the game delivers to you these little audio clips and audio logs and this like puzzle that you've got to piece together about what happened. I think that's absolutely based in like a very movie-esque way. And what I'll say to your Aliens critique is that Aliens was set on a planet, not a starship, and also
Minute
Aliens
detail.
was an action movie. Dead Space would not be a straight up horror, and we know Emily Blunt and John Krasinski can do good horror.
So you want like Blumhouse Productions to do your Dead Space film? You want like a really like low key?
They're no Michael
horror?
Bay, but I don't know. I don't know who I'd pick for the director. I honestly, Denis Villeneuve, maybe. I don't know. It's someone who can do slow paced cosmic horror.
I think you want Paul W.S. Anderson.
Maybe.
I think
Maybe
he could pull off a Dead Space
I agree.
movie.
I think that's probably a good pick.
He delivers his films on time, in budget, all of that. I think he would actually be perfect.
They
for
might
that.
not be great, but they'd make their money.
And what I'll say to the Event Horizon
Yeah.
critique is that Dead Space is a movie essentially about a person fixing a ship while trying to emotionally reconnect with a woman who may or may not be dead. Event Horizon was a good movie about a similar sort of thing, a haunted ship, and that's a really, really good movie. Don't get me wrong; it's a very good horror movie because it's very cosmic and scary. But you don't really get a sense of, you don't really connection to the characters. They're just people who just need to get off the ship. Whereas John Krasinski would have to delve further into the ship to solve the mystery.
I think you could put something like that into a movie as long as it isn't too representative of things that exist. Like The Thing is a good one as well. Dead Space reminds me a lot of The Thing in terms of the design.
They both take H.P. Lovecraft horror elements.
Yeah.
They're of this like, it's not about the monster in front of you; it's about what the monster represents.
Yeah.
Like there's the artifact within Dead Space that is changing things in a way we don't know and creating this sort of unknown fear and unknown horror, and it starts to infect your sanity, and we don't know whether Isaac's going to feel that and whether he's really seeing his girlfriend, or is she just maybe a vision, or maybe he's going mad, or maybe she's a hologram, or maybe this or that's the horror of the game. Not necessarily. I mean, the monster's a good scare and it's a good way to get some John Krasinski action in there and some conflict, but yeah, he's got the range for it.
Now he has, absolutely. Now he's kind of marketed himself as more of an action man, and I think he will continue to do so, especially if he works with Marvel.
Yeah.
I think a horror, a movie that's based on a horror video game is...
I think that's probably the easier way to go for making a film adaptation of a game.
Well, people want to see, like, ultimately want to see, like characters and then enemies, like, and how they translate into a movie.
But there's possibly a deeper story here. I mean, Dead Space at its core was very Nietzschean and very Lovecraft and very like, oh, it's helpless and it's hopeless and it's so
it's dense
dark in
and
its
sort
theme.
of dark and depressing.
And it's like,
isn't
it
it?
feels like you're reading a dark novel. Remember Alan Wake? It's a bit like that. That's taking that sort of horror,
like a novel in a video game.
Yeah, and I think you could adapt that to a movie quite well. What I have issue with Gears of War is that like the movie, the worst parts about the games are the bits you pitched. There's a scene in Gears of War 2 where
worm.
Marcus Phoenix, without any sense of irony or humor, says they're sinking cities with a giant worm. And
imagine that 10 times louder
and
with
then
amps.
And then just
I
want
to see Batista scream that.
land at all, because it's just like, but this game was stupid enough.
But then they go inside the worm
And then they
they
go
chainsaw
inside the
it.
worm.
The
And
problem
chainsaw
is
the way
that
out.
that wasn't even meant to be funny in that movie.
No,
Like
yeah,
in the
well,
game, sorry.
That's it. It was just a falling flat thing. Like, oh, we've created this giant beast of it. It's just a worm.
But
We've joked
It's
about
just a
worms
worm.
before on this podcast. Don't make me go back.
in the Godzilla verse.
Yeah.
Godzilla's a worm.
Godzilla worm. So my problem with this is not just the cast. I mean, Ryan Reynolds would not fit in with those bulky dudes at all. He's skinny, good looking.
But I
he's
could
skinny
see
fair.
that working though.
That's the character of Damon from
But
the
even-
video games.
but
He
Bed-
doesn't fit in with
He's
it.
Bed
the
is
smart-
blonde and he's quite ripped. Bed is ripped. If
But
you look at him,
Ryan Reynolds
got
can do a
muscles
new
that-
workout for that movie. He's going to bulk up. He needs to match as close as he can. He needs to do a Robert Pattinson on that and bulk up,
Maybe.
do his best. But this translation I do think would work because there are certain video games that I don't think can. This one I think is deserving of it because of its audience. I still think it has a massive audience now. I think that what Cliff Bleszinski did as the developer created this really interesting universe and backstory to these characters. But then, don't get me wrong, it is presented and conveyed in this really over-the-top, over-punctuated way. But in a film, they need to understand that this isn't going to be for like academic audiences. This is going to be like your Netflix Saturday night,
kind
like
Doom.
chips and beer movie.
I mean, the
Right.
majority of people.
It's adding on to the Doom idea,
The
but it's
majority
going to
of-
be doubled down.
The majority of people who watch this movie and enjoy it are going to be people who can't read.
That's what I'm going for. I am going for a dumb audience out there.
Can you read? You'll love this movie.
But the thing
That'll
is,
be on the trailer advert.
But for my film, I'm not on about making people bulk up for the role because they don't need to. John Goodman, just his voice.
Well,
will
tell me
do.
about that.
The-
So it would be CGI Rex, would it?
CGI Rex for sure. CGI Rex.
And we
for
can
sure.
do that for an entire movie,
I think we could. I
and
think
it
we
look
could.
fine and wouldn't age badly.
Oh yeah, totally.
And it's also
This is my movie. It's
it's-
not gonna. I'm going to make this movie. I'm going to make it ageless.
so you want to adopt the whole plot of Mass Effect 1,
Yeah.
which is a fairly long thing. You've got to introduce all these different characters of a group at least 7 people.
I mean, I'm going to cut out Ashley
Um,
Williams. There's no need for space races.
Well,
but,
you could, yeah, okay. So you could cut out a few bits and bobs here, but you've got to get all this group together. You've got to give them the mission. You've got to give them the
Mhm.
emotional direction. You've got to give them a
Mhm.
very long plot.
Mhm.
You obviously can cut bits out, and you've got to give them the resolution at the end to tease for a sequel. You've got so much to do within probably a 2.5 hour movie.
What I will say, if it's a question of cramming too much into one film,
Yeah.
I'm going to say that the Super Mario Brothers film did that spectacularly
Yeah.
because it got everything in there.
You've got everything there.
If you can do a
Yeah.
similar thing where you can just drip feed little elements of
Oh,
that
yeah,
video game
totally.
universe into a 2-hour slot, then it
I
would
think-
work.
But
I
don't
think
you
it's
can.
definitely
I think you
doable.
have to water Mass Effect down to make it palpable, and then when you've got watered down Mass Effect and you take away some of that charm, it is Star Trek. It's
yeah,
Star Trek.
yeah,
You've
yeah.
got a Star Trek movie, and I'm okay to see the Mass Effect
But the
movie.
characters are better. The characters are better, are more interesting. They've got
Are
more
they?
in.
Because
Yes,
Jake
they're
Gyllenhaal,
Yes.
not traditionally an interesting person.
Commander Shepard is probably the most boring of the characters, but we're not
That's
focusing
because
on
we've got
him.
Avengers.
But when you talk, when
Jake
you,
Gyllenhaal, I think, is a really good casting choice for that because he is an adapter. He can apply himself like Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Tom Hanks should be in your movie.
I do.
What I'm saying
I'd be
is,
down
do
for
it.
Tom Hanks.
as Commander
He can be.
Shepard.
He can be an
I'll
alien.
take anyone.
No,
give
that's
me more
my
points.
movie. I'm taking
You're
anyone.
taking everyone you can. Yeah.
You've got Terry Crews
I'm
with
all
Ryan
about the
Reynolds.
money making. Like, there's
God.
nothing more to my film. But Jake Gyllenhaal could pull that off
I think he could.
because there isn't an awful lot to him in terms of like stereotype, which is what makes him a very good actor. Like Tom Hanks in that aspect of versatility, is that he can apply himself to any kind of role, because that role would be a very different movie. Something
Yeah.
like Star Trek, which translates across television and has done for the last 60 years fantastically, but then in a one-shot movie that may be successful or not, it's harder to sell a pitch of the movie. But for casting, you want someone that can be
Want someone with a big name
that
that
isn't
will push
my
it.
my actors are
But-
stereotyped, right?
Yeah,
Ryan
that's
Reynolds
true.
and Dave Bautista are stereotyped, right? Jake
Well.
Gyllenhaal, not so much. Especially with Emily Blunt and John Krasinski.
They're not stereotyped.
They're not stereotyped, but what they're going through at the minute is a transition period into bigger universes with more action in them.
And Giancarlo Esposito fits right in.
And
that slot,
Giancarlo
baby.
Esposito,
right
yeah.
in that slot,
Yeah.
baby. And I'll say this as
He's
well.
very, very
My
good.
favorite part about Mass Effect was the role-playing system, where you have consequences for being good or bad, and you get this idea of you're playing this character and you have this ship. How are you going to put that into a movie?
That will be the issue. But You just gotta go for the the most popular, probably the most fun answers. Like some renegade option where you just slap an alien because they called you ship.
But I mean, I'm not saying like if Commander Shepard's going to be a bad guy or not. I'm saying how are you going to translate the best part about that game, which is the narrative you bring to yourself. You're like, I've helped this person. I'm such a good person. How are you going to bring that satisfaction to an audience?
This is why I would probably make it sort of. This is going to be a Netflix movie, but follow me. Like the interactive movie that thing you did.
Bandersnatch.
No.
Oh no.
Yeah.
A Bandersnatch style Mass Effect product with Jake Gyllenhaal.
I could imagine it being like
out.
that.
You lost me at Bandersnatch. Can't have the choices.
Oh, I'm so.
Well, that's the thing. If you wanted your option, it would have to be in that way. But my version of it probably wouldn't be that. I would, because I'm a strict Paragon man myself.
Same.
So I'd go the good route. I'm not going to be douchebag Shepard. I'm going to be the good guy. And the best part, well, I mean, we don't even need that much. We don't even need that much backstory for Commander Shepard. All of the film, for the characters. They're gonna bring it.
Okay, so
the supporting cast are gonna bring it.
Following on from this, so you get to choose. So you're saying in this Bandersnatch style Mass Effect film,
if we go that way,
you get to choose whether it's not to be good or bad in your actions. Do you also get to choose who to romance?
That'd be it.
Okay, so
sure.
Would you also get to choose who to shoot and not shoot? Because you're essentially pitching a Mass Effect video game.
Remember the filmic format? It's difficult.
Yeah, but. Look, it's better than Gears of War. Come on.
Well, we shall let our audience decide. Okay, that's the end of round 2 then. So post your comments down below who you think pitched the best video game movie. Do you think it was Gears of War? Do you think it was Mass Effect? Or do you think it was Dead Space? On to question 3. So,
question 3. We're going to discuss which video game shouldn't be touched and developed into a movie. So, Elle, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, there's a video game series that's very sacred to me, and you guys know this. It's a video game series that influenced me so much when I was, 9-10 years old. I was a very young lad, but it hit me so deep in my core, and it essentially became a part of who I was. I would never trust this complex, operable, wonderful, complex... I know I said complex twice, but it really is complex story to be touched. The best game for the PS1... overall, critics say, is Metal Gear Solid. Best video game for the PS2, it originally was Metal Gear Solid 2, and then it was replaced by Metal Gear Solid 3. Best video game for the PS3, Metal Gear Solid 4. And while Metal Gear Solid 5 is not the best game for the PS4, it is a very good game, and it's even if it's half finished. You can't adapt it barely. The character, because he's so complex and he's got a rooted history, how are you going to take this story, this amazing complex story, and manage to get all the faithful elements in and manage to cut anything out? Everything's so intermingled and so intricate within the series. You can't make Metal Gear Solid into a movie. None of them into a movie. It cannot be done. I know people are talking about it. I know it's on the IMDb list right now in production. Don't do it. It's not going to end. It's not going to please fans, because you can't please those fans anymore.
I believe it's due to be directed by the guy who did Kong, Skull Island, Jordan Vogt Roberts.
Yay.
So,
Yeah.
That was a good Kong movie.
They'll get one shot of the Metal Gear. They'll have Solid Snake being a cigar chomping idiot, and that'll be the movie, essentially. So my argument is that overall, this is the highest on the top that shouldn't be touched. That's my argument.
Okay.
Stu?
Okay. That's a really good one, and I do agree with that, actually. My choice is a 2013 survival horror game that came out that had really put a different spin on storyline as well as character development. And it was nominated for over 200 Game of the Year awards, and it was The Last of Us. Now, The Last of Us has a very special format of telling its story in the world of a video game and how you play the characters of Joel and Ellie. And I think that in of itself is very filmic, and that you are essentially playing out a story. You're not playing the characters that you can change their attributes, because in survival horror you can often do that. You can you upgrade your weapons, you upgrade your things and all that. This one, you can do that and you can sort of gain stuff out of it, but really you're playing each segment to find out more of where these characters are going. And I think the dynamic between those two has already been done in cinema. If you look at a film like Logan and the relationship between him and the young girl and this unwantedness of having her around him is a similar thing with The Last of Us. And I think that the amount of time that it's taken to develop the sequel relates to just keep it within that universe. We don't need to see it moved over to a film translation now. And that's the reason why I don't think it should be touched. I think this was a difficult one for me because there were quite a few choices within this genre, within survival horror, because it is one of my favourites. But that one in particular stands out as one that there's just no point because it is already half a movie. You just play that movie
I agree.
through the dynamics of game mechanics.
Yeah.
So that's my pick. The Last of Us shouldn't be made into a movie.
Solid agree with that.
Yeah.
Go on, Matt.
Well, I'm gonna go for Halo. They should not stop making these short movies. They should start, and they're making a TV show at the moment with a cast that I kind of don't agree with, and it's the same kind of thing as Doom. I think they're gonna add stuff to a character that doesn't really have that much unless you go into lore, but not the average person who plays the games won't know this lore behind him. So why would people? I don't see why people would really care about unless he's just shooting aliens. It's just going to be. I know I'm basically arguing against a game, a movie like Doom.
Yeah.
But
So.
But the thing is, the only thing I've seen that I thought was genuinely good was like there was a trailer for Halo 3 that was directed by Neil Blomkamp called Landfall, which was a very like practical effect, very 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 gritty to watch, and it was very good. Only 10-15 minutes long, but it was really good, and that's the closest I'd think I'd go for something like that. But I don't think it would. I don't think it's going to go over well with this TV show, and I don't think it would translate well as a movie. I don't think it. I just don't think it doesn't need to be told.
Okay, so I guess what I'm going to do now is I'm going to argue why Metal Gear Solid is more sacred than both Halo and The Last of Us. And I'm happy to do it because I think neither of these should be made into movies, with the exception, I think, with yours, Matt. I think Neil Blomkamp could do a good Halo movie because he did try to put elements of that in the Matt Damon Elysium movie with the ring and stuff like that. So he was using those elements. The thing is, with Metal Gear Solid, because it's a very complex postmodern story, you'd have to first get the right director, which is like probably just Denis DeVille. And even then, you would be attempting a story more complex than probably Blade Runner. I mean, the fact is, Blade Runner and Metal Gear Solid draw a little bit off of each other, I think, in the way that we talk about the body and, the idea of the individual and the idea of what's right and wrong in our society and the complex issues that go into it. Metal Gear Solid 1 itself is probably the most simplest one that you could actually adapt out of the 5. But even so, there's so much complexity and twists in it. And we have these James Bond movies already, and they're starting to get more complex, so let's just leave them to it. Let's just see how far we can go with a complex James Bond movie, and then see how we do it. With Last of Us, you're right, it already is a movie, but doesn't that also make the argument that it could be translated to a movie? I know it already is, but couldn't you just expand the action, or expand the dialogue, or expand the connection between the two to make it a movie?
See, I think the problem is, if he was to make if The Last of Us was to be made into a movie, they would just compare to Logan already. Yeah, it's a very similar thing.
They would compare to something like that.
It's just lacking horror.
As well as what you want from a video game movie is not to compare it to the video game. You want it to be something new that expands and builds on the actual characters involved and the world that's involved in there. You are limited with something like The Last of Us, with it being set in this post-apocalyptic universe, that you can't translate that into a film and it not be The Road or it not be The Book of Eli,
Yeah.
because those two films have done that theme particularly well, that The Last of Us was able to just pull on this emotional investment that you have on those two characters. And I think that with games now having like motion capture and having these like actors who are known for motion capture and voice work portray these individuals, they almost do a better job than people with their face on screen.
Yeah.
You know, if there were to be a Last of Us movie, then I would cast someone like Hugh Jackman and say Ellen Page, you know, as Ellie, just because like it's the image, it's the aesthetic, you know, that's all you can really take from that.
Yeah.
And you see all these articles that are like, those two would be the best people for it, and it's like, yeah, they look the part, they could do a cosplay of it incredibly, but when you're doing a 2-hour film telling that exact same story, you're basically going to go, this is the same as the game, I'd rather just play the game.
Yeah.
You know, whereas, you know, something like when I argued about Resident Evil earlier is that I could watch that movie and say, I like this film, but I don't prefer it to the video game that it's based on, because I do prefer the video game in that sense. But there are some that you may go, like something like Metal Gear Solid, you're going to go, I would rather just spend like one summer playing all the Metal Gear Solid series than sitting in a cinema for 2.5 hours watching this movie that's janky. You know, it could be.
But why would Last of Us? Why would Metal Gear Solid be more of a film adaptation than The Last of Us? Why would it be easier to do that, or better to do that?
It's very, very difficult with Metal Gear Solid because there are that many layers of. There are that many themes that you could include in it that to pick one linear timeline for it to fall into is like you need to have like balls of steel to make that decision.
Yep.
Like I can't even explain. I'm certainly not a fan of it as you are, but
like knowing what you know, could it even be done? But would they still attempt it?
It would be a very shoddy attempt, but you would have to get the right people. You would have to get like some super like research into that. Like that's a movie where you can't just bang that out in 6 months. That's like a 10-year project.
Let me help your argument just a tiny bit. Christian Bale has expressed interest in Solid Snake,
as has Oscar Isaac.
Both of which have the range. So if we got the character sorted, what about the plot? Could you actually adapt, let's say Metal Gear 1, because it's the simplest, into an actual film? And why would that film be better for the world than The Last of Us?
I think because of the less of the filmic style that it's based in. I think those games are based around immersion. They are based around concentration and stealth and then action and all things that only really exist within the. I mean, action obviously exists in film, but it's a different conveyance. Whereas a video game style of that storyline is the perfect platform to that be played out upon, as opposed to a television show or a board game, you know, or any other form of interaction. You know, it's a video game, and I think what is it Hideo Kojima did when he started that is like revolutionary within that universe. I don't think that when it comes to untouchable items, that's very high on the list. But I think The Last of Us is, with it being a much more recent iteration of a story, it's still very possible. But Metal Gear Solid has had this time, and Halo as well, have had this time to build up a universe and to build up merchandise and all different things. And even those short films that they've done, as much as they probably keep getting done, they have been very successful.
And they're good. Some of them are good as well.
Some of them are good.
Some of them are good. There are elements of the Halo 4 film that worked. What was it called?
The Forward Unto Dawn.
Forward Unto Dawn. There are elements of that really solidly worked, I think. And the universe is very adaptable because it's not overly complex. The Foreigner stuff obviously doesn't. The Covenant wasn't adapted well, and the Spartans weren't adapted well. But the military ideas, the complex technologies that are in it, I think that actually works. But you could adapt that. And that's the visualness.
They could adapt the military aspect very, like you say, that's done well. But the the problem is that the main character is this like super soldier that they didn't
agree.
do well.
Well, what if he isn't? Okay, so
And-
let me picture a movie real quick. What about if it? So there's like the 7 Halo rings, right? What if the military finds one, the UNSC finds one, they send a bunch of soldiers down there, and it's just them versus the Flood, right? It's just a bunch of soldiers versus the Flood, and that's the movie. And at the end of the movie,
That's just Doom.
a Spartan walks into the a Spartan walks into the room, whatever. That's the end of the movie. So I think that is a solid Halo 1 movie.
Maybe
And
I suppose if they do relegate, if there was to relegate the chief as a secondary
yeah,
character,
like a mythic,
yeah,
legendary thing. Yeah.
But I think I could see it, and I could definitely see it being done if it was to be picked up by Neil Blomkamp. I could see that.
Yeah.
But I just
But why should that
I
exist
just-
less than Metal Gear Solid?
But the thing is, I don't think people would be happy with having a Halo film without the main character as the main focus. If you know,
I
what
don't
mean.
know about that because on the Halo, some of the Halo books are without Master Chief for a majority of
Yeah,
of-
but
of
would
that's
you?
in 'em.
But
There's actually a book about Halo 1 from the perspective of soldiers,
yeah,
and that's a good
but
book.
if you was going to see a blockbuster movie of Halo, are you really wanting to not see?
No, I'm nervous. I'm very
That's the
nervous, and I
thing.
do want to see some Spartan activity, right?
Because I think a lot
It's-
more
it's
people
difficult.
would be upset that Master Chief is not the main character. He's not going to be. You're not going to be with following him running
Yeah.
around.
Maybe, but if
killing
the action's still
aliens.
there, I think it's
But-
it's okay.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
but then could you make a Metal Gear Solid film without Solid Snake?
Oh well, yes, and if you're making number 3, which is the sort of
Yeah.
the big boss, that's a different question. Without that main character, it wouldn't work because the thing is that they're the characters that the player works through their issues with, because we've got a very good idea about who David Hayter is in all of his games. For Metal Gear Solid 5, there's a bit of
Kiefer Sutherland.
weirdness there. Well, it's not even Kiefer Sutherland. It's the idea that he's Venom Snake and not actual Snake. So you could not make with that because he's such a rounded character that he fits well with the weirdness of some, the evilness of others, the good of others. There's always a nicer character than Snake. There's always a more evil character than Snake. There's always a weirder character than Snake, and there's also a more boring character than Snake. He fits so well in the middle that the audience, whether video game or movie, would have to follow him. So no, if you got rid of Snake, it wouldn't work. You could do like a mini, like student project film about some elements of that universe. There was actually a fan-made movie of Metal Gear, I think, or even Metal Gear Solid, but about one of the games. It actually wasn't bad because it only took him just walking through the jungle or walking through, like a very short film. It actually was not bad, but because it could not incorporate all these big elements into it, it was just a fan movie. It was cheap as well, but yeah, it was a good attempt.
I think that's what's very difficult with a video game translation into a film, is that a TV series is a better platform for a bigger universe. So this Halo TV series that's coming out, they've made the right decision, the studio has made the right decision by moving it onto TV rather than just a one-shot movie where they may or may not make sequels.
Okay, what about TV then? Because I actually still would argue against the Metal Gear Solid TV.
TV,
Very heavily.
The Last of Us would work in a TV
I think
format.
so as well. Yeah.
Because the story is so long, and as long as the only issue you've got is copying it shot for shot.
Well, here's my issue with The Last of Us is that it is it's a character story about two people, right? And once you get rid of that, it's just a generic post-apocalyptic world to me. I mean, there's interesting stuff with the fungus zombies, don't get me wrong, but it does not separate itself heavily from any other apocalyptic movie.
Yeah.
So that's my issue. So they have to be character-driven. Could you do like 3-4 seasons of a character-driven TV show? I don't know.
I think
That's
this
the
is
thing. It'd only be one season.
this
though,
is where
wouldn't it?
well, you could have it as like a 6-part miniseries or a TV film, but my only other issue there is that it's been done with Logan. Logan already
I agree
pulled
with
off that storyline. Granted, it's completely separate from the post-apocalyptic theme, but
Well-
why do something like that again when Halo could be adapted into a TV series, not a movie? Metal Gear Solid,
Anime, maybe. Maybe
Yeah.
an anime.
stick to what they've done. Do graphic novels. Adapt them into another platform. This is the problem I have with Hollywood, is that they have to adapt everything. So when there has to be a movie, like the example I gave earlier about the Warcraft film, that that had to be made, and it was inevitable in the sort of 10 years that World of Warcraft had been building up as this giant universe, that eventually there was going to be this movie, and that it sank. It didn't do very well, and it was never going to do very well.
But I liked it, actually. I liked the Warcraft.
As a guilty pleasure, or as
Well,
a genuine...
I don't know anything about the world, and it was fun to sit with Wikipedia and who's that guy? What's this guy? The movie itself...
Some films are good like
if
that.
I'm correct with the World of Warcraft universe, that movie takes place far before the events of the World of Warcraft game.
Yeah.
It's like the
that's
history, it's
what
like the
I'm aware
setting
of,
up. So it was fine for me. I liked it. I liked some of the characters. But it was a bit rushed. It wasn't a great movie overall, but I liked the movie. It was good. But it also demonstrates my point. You can't do that with Metal Gear Solid. You can't do any of that with Metal Gear Solid, because if you half-ass one bit, it infects the movie. If you mess up Meryl, if you mess up Liquid Snake, it infects the rest of the movie and makes it worthless. And that's why you can't adapt it.
Well, interesting stuff there. Video game movies. Again, post your comments down below as what video game do you not think should be adapted into a film? Do you agree with The Last of Us? Do you agree with Halo? Or do you agree with Metal Gear Solid? Thank you again for listening to 1.5 Degrees. I've been Stu.
I'm El.
And I'm Matt.
And we shall see you again next week. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.